Nathan Hale stood at the window of his corner office, gazing out at the bustling city below. At 38, he had it all: a successful career as a bank manager, a beautiful wife, 2 wonderful children, and a picturesque home in the suburbs. To the outside world, his life was perfect. As he straightened his tie and prepared for another day of meetings and financial decisions, Nathan couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. His wife, Laura, had been distant lately, often coming home late from work events and spending more time on her phone than with him. He pushed the thought aside, chalking it up to the stress of their busy lives. Nathan's assistant, Jenny, poked her head into his office. "Mr. Hale, your 9 a.m. is here." "Thanks, Jenny. I'll be right out," Nathan replied, forcing a smile. As he walked to the conference room, Nathan's mind wandered to his upcoming wedding anniversary. 15 years with Laura, it seemed like both a lifetime and a blink of an eye. He had planned a surprise romantic getaway for the weekend, hoping to rekindle the spark that had been missing lately. Little did Nathan know, this seemingly ordinary day would be the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, family, and his own strength. 2 days later, Nathan left work early, a bouquet of roses in hand and excitement bubbling in his chest. He couldn't wait to surprise Laura, and whisk her away for their anniversary weekend. As he pulled into the driveway, Nathan noticed Laura's car was already there. Perfect, he thought, she's home early too. The house was quiet as he entered, too quiet. "Laura?" he called out, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. Then he heard it, a muffled giggle coming from upstairs. His heart began to race as he took the stairs 2 at a time, the roses falling forgotten to the floor. The bedroom door was ajar, and what Nathan saw inside shattered his world in an instant. Laura, his wife of 15 years, was in their bed with another man. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. "Nathan," Laura gasped, scrambling to cover herself. I can explain." But Nathan couldn't hear her over the roaring in his ears. He stumbled backward, nearly falling down the stairs in his haste to escape the horrific scene. Outside, he leaned against his car, struggling to breathe. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to him, to their family? As the shock began to wear off, a cold determination settled over Nathan. In that moment, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. "Thanks, Jenny. I'll be right out," Nathan replied, forcing a smile. As he walked to the conference room, Nathan's mind wandered to his upcoming wedding anniversary. 15 years with Laura, it seemed like both a lifetime and a blink of an eye. He had planned a surprise romantic getaway for the weekend, hoping to rekindle the spark that had been missing lately. Little did Nathan know, this seemingly ordinary day would be the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, family, and his own strength. 2 days later, Nathan left work early, a bouquet of roses in hand and excitement bubbling in his chest. He couldn't wait to surprise Laura, and whisk her away for their anniversary weekend. As he pulled into the driveway, Nathan noticed Laura's car was already there. Perfect, he thought, she's home early too. The house was quiet as he entered, too quiet. "Laura?" he called out, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. Then he heard it, a muffled giggle coming from upstairs. His heart began to race as he took the stairs 2 at a time, the roses falling forgotten to the floor. The bedroom door was ajar, and what Nathan saw inside shattered his world in an instant. Laura, his wife of 15 years, was in their bed with another man. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. "Nathan," Laura gasped, scrambling to cover herself. I can explain." But Nathan couldn't hear her over the roaring in his ears. He stumbled backward, nearly falling down the stairs in his haste to escape the horrific scene. Outside, he leaned against his car, struggling to breathe. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to him, to their family? As the shock began to wear off, a cold determination settled over Nathan. In that moment, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The next few weeks passed in a blur of heated arguments, tearful explanations, and sleepless nights. Nathan moved into the guest room, unable to bear sleeping in the bed where his wife had betrayed him. Laura begged for forgiveness, swearing it was a one-time mistake and that she still loved him. But Nathan couldn't shake the image of her with another man, couldn't unhear the sound of her laughter as she betrayed their vows. The breaking point came when he overheard Laura on the phone, whispering to someone. "He'll come around, don't worry. We just need to give it time." In that moment, Nathan knew he couldn't stay. He had to leave, for his own sanity and self-respect. Telling the children was the hardest part. Amber, 14, and Carson, 12, listened with tear-filled eyes as Nathan explained that he and their mother were separating. "But why, Dad?" Amber sobbed. "Can't you work it out?" Nathan's heart broke as he hugged his daughter. "Sometimes, sweetie, love isn't enough. But I promise, no matter what happens between your mom and me, we both love you and Carson more than anything." The day Nathan moved out was surreal. As he packed his car with the essentials, he couldn't help but wonder how he had ended up here, leaving behind the life he had built over 15 years. His boss had been understanding, offering him a transfer to the bank's branch in Charlotte, North Carolina. A fresh start, away from the painful memories and the pitying looks of friends and neighbors who had heard about Laura's infidelity. As Nathan drove away from the only home his children had ever known, he felt a mix of grief and relief. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. Little did Nathan know, this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love and family. Charlotte was a city of new beginnings for Nathan. He threw himself into his work, determined to prove himself in his new position. His days were filled with meetings and financial reports, his nights with take-out dinners and fitful sleep in a sparsely furnished apartment. 6 months passed, and Nathan settled into a routine. He spoke to Amber and Carson weekly, his heart aching at the distance between them. Laura had moved her lover into their family home, a fact that still made Nathan's blood boil. It was on a particularly lonely Friday night that fate intervened. Nathan had decided to treat himself to dinner at a local restaurant instead of another night of microwaved meals. As he sat at the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey, a vibrant laugh caught his attention. He turned to see a stunning Latina woman in animated conversation with the bartender. Her dark eyes sparkled with mischief, and her smile lit up the entire room. Nathan couldn't help but stare, mesmerized. As if sensing his gaze, the woman turned and met his eyes. "See something you like, senor?" she asked, her voice teasing. Nathan felt himself blush, something he hadn't done in years. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stare." The woman laughed again, a sound that sent warmth through Nathan's chest. "No need to apologize. I'm Catalina," she said, extending her hand. "Nathan," he replied, taking her hand. As their fingers touched, Nathan felt a spark he thought he'd never experience again. But was he ready for what came next? Over the next few months, Nathan and Catalina's friendship blossomed. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, passionate, fiery, and full of life. She challenged him, made him laugh, and slowly, the walls he had built around his heart began to crumble. One evening, as they walked through a local park, Catalina turned to Nathan with a serious expression. "Nathan, I need to know. Are you still in love with your ex-wife?" The question caught him off guard, but as he looked into Catalina's eyes, he realized the truth. "No," he said softly. "I'm not. I think I'm falling in love with you." Their first kiss was electric, filled with promise and the excitement of new beginnings. For the first time since leaving his old life behind, Nathan felt truly alive. As Nathan's relationship with Catalina deepened, he received unexpected news from home. Amber had called, her voice trembling with emotion. "Dad, I need to see you. Things are bad here." Nathan's protective instincts kicked in immediately. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Are you okay?" Amber's story tumbled out in a rush of tears and anger. Laura's new boyfriend was cruel and controlling, making life miserable for both Amber and Carson. They wanted to live with Nathan. The revelation sent Nathan's world spinning once again. He had built a new life in Charlotte, found love with Catalina. But his children needed him. Could he find a way to merge these two worlds? As Nathan prepared for Amber and Carson's visit, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his journey. Little did he know, the biggest challenges and surprises were yet to come. The day of Nathan and Catalina's wedding arrived, a perfect Carolina spring morning. The small chapel was decorated with white roses and twinkling lights, a romantic setting for their intimate ceremony. As Nathan stood at the altar, watching Catalina walk down the aisle in her flowing white gown, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. Amber and Carson stood beside him, their faces beaming with joy for their father's happiness. Just as the officiant began to speak, the chapel doors burst open with a bang. Laura stood in the doorway, her face a mask of fury and desperation. "Nathan, stop," she cried out, her voice echoing through the stunned silence. "You can't do this." Nathan felt his body tense, anger and disbelief warring within him. "Laura, what are you doing here?" he hissed, conscious of the shocked guests and Catalina's trembling hand in his. Laura stumbled down the aisle, her eyes wild. "I made a mistake, Nathan. I never should have let you go. We can still fix this, for our family." Catalina stepped forward, her voice calm but steel in her eyes. "This is Nathan's family now. You need to leave." The tension in the chapel was palpable as Laura's gaze darted between Nathan and Catalina. Suddenly, she lunged forward, grabbing Nathan's arm. "Please, just listen to me." In the chaos that followed, no one saw it coming. As Laura pulled on Nathan's arm, she lost her balance, stumbling backwards. Her heel caught on the edge of the aisle runner, and she fell, her head striking the corner of a wooden pew with a sickening crack. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the reception hall as someone dropped a champagne flute in shock. In that moment, Nathan realized their happily ever after was far from guaranteed. Time seemed to slow as Laura crumpled to the ground, a thin line of blood trickling from her temple. Amber's scream pierced the air, snapping everyone into action. "Someone call an ambulance," Nathan shouted, kneeling beside his ex-wife's still form. As he checked for a pulse, his mind raced. How had this perfect day turned into such a nightmare? The next few hours were a blur of sirens, hospital corridors, and anxious waiting. Nathan paced the waiting room, still in his wedding tuxedo, while Catalina sat with Amber and Carson, offering what comfort she could. When the doctor finally emerged, his face was grave. "Mr. Hale, your ex-wife has suffered a severe head injury. She's stable, but there's been some brain damage. We won't know the full extent until she wakes up." Nathan felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Despite everything Laura had done, she was still the mother of his children. He couldn't turn his back on her now. As he turned to face his new wife and children, Nathan saw a mix of emotions on their faces: fear, confusion, and a question none of them dared to ask aloud: what would this mean for their future? The weeks following the wedding day accident were a test of strength for the entire family. Laura remained in a coma, her prognosis uncertain. Nathan found himself torn between his new life with Catalina and his obligation to the mother of his children. Amber and Carson were struggling to cope with the situation. The sight of their mother lying motionless in a hospital bed was taking its toll. Amber, in particular, seemed to be spiraling. One evening, after a heated argument with Nathan about visiting Laura, Amber stormed out of the house. Hours passed with no word from her, and Nathan's worry grew with each unanswered call. Just after midnight, Nathan's phone rang. His heart stopped when he saw it was the local police department. "Mr. Hale. This is Officer Johnson. There's been an accident involving your daughter." Nathan's world tilted on its axis as he rushed to the hospital, Catalina and Carson close behind. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos: doctors rushing about, the sharp smell of antiseptic in the air. A grim-faced doctor approached them. "Mr. Hale. Your daughter was in a car accident. She's alive, but I'm afraid she's sustained a spinal injury. We won't know the full extent until we run more tests, but there's a possibility she may be paralyzed." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. How could this be happening? First Laura, now Amber. It felt like a cruel joke of fate. As they sat by Amber's bedside, waiting for her to wake up, Nathan couldn't help but wonder if this was some sort of punishment. Had his pursuit of happiness with Catalina somehow triggered this string of tragedies? Carson, pale and shaken, looked up at Nathan with tears in his eyes. "Dad, is this because of us? Because we wanted to live with you?" Nathan pulled his son close, his heart breaking at the guilt in the boy's voice. "No, son. This isn't anyone's fault. Sometimes bad things just happen." But even as he said the words, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to these events than mere coincidence. Little did he know, a revelation was coming that would shake the very foundations of everything he thought he knew about his family. As the family grappled with Amber's injury and Laura's continued coma, an unexpected visitor arrived at the hospital. An elderly man, distinguished-looking with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, asked to speak with Nathan privately. "Mr. Hale," the man began, his voice grave. "My name is Harold Jennings. I'm your biological father." Nathan stared at the man in disbelief. "What? No, that's impossible. My father. The man who raised you is a good man," Harold interrupted gently. "But he's not your biological father. Your mother. We had a brief affair before she met your dad. She never told me about you." The revelation hit Nathan like a thunderbolt. His mind raced with questions, but one stood out above the rest. "Why are you telling me this now?" Harold's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm dying, son. And because you have a half-sister who needs your help." As Harold explained the situation, Nathan felt as if he had stepped into an alternate reality. His half-sister, Emily, was in trouble. She was addicted to drugs and had gotten involved with a dangerous crowd. Harold feared for her life. "I know this is a lot to ask," Harold said, his voice pleading. "But you're the only family she has left. I'm hoping you can help her, give her a chance at a better life." Nathan's head spun with the implications. Another family member to worry about, another person who needed his help. But as he looked at Harold's desperate face, he knew he couldn't turn his back on this newfound family. As Nathan left the room to share this shocking news with Catalina and Carson, he couldn't help but wonder, How many more surprises did life have in store for him? In the months that followed, Nathan's life became a delicate balancing act. Amber slowly recovered, regaining some movement in her legs but facing a long road of physical therapy. Laura eventually woke from her coma, but with significant memory loss. She had no recollection of the past 5 years. Catalina proved to be Nathan's rock through it all, her strength and love unwavering. Together, they worked to create a new normal for their blended family, which now included Emily, who was slowly finding her footing in a life free from addiction. Carson, showing a maturity beyond his years, became a pillar of support for both his sisters. The shared adversity seemed to forge a bond between the siblings that transcended their complicated family history. As for Nathan, he found himself navigating a path he never could have imagined. He was a husband, a father, a son, and a brother, each role presenting its own unique challenges and rewards. On a warm summer evening, as the family gathered for a backyard barbecue, Nathan took a moment to observe the scene around him. Catalina was laughing with Emily as they prepared a salad. Amber, seated in her wheelchair, was engaged in an animated conversation with Carson, and Laura, who was slowly rebuilding her relationship with her children. Despite the hardships they had faced, there was love here, and resilience. They had weathered storms that would have broken many families, and come out stronger on the other side. As Nathan joined his family at the table, he couldn't help but smile. The journey had been long and often painful, but it had led him here, to a family that was beautifully imperfect, forever changing, and more precious than he could have ever imagined. Yet, as he looked at the faces around him, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that their story was far from over. What new challenges awaited them? Only time would tell. And there you have it, folks, Nathan's incredible journey from heartbreak to happiness. But the story doesn't end here. We want to hear from you. What did you think of Nathan's roller coaster ride? Did any part of his story resonate with you? Maybe you've experienced something similar or know someone who has. Don't keep your thoughts to yourself, share them in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives and experiences. Your story could be the inspiration someone else needs today. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, why not give it a thumbs up? It really helps us out and lets us know you want more content like this. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We've got more fascinating stories coming your way, and you won't want to miss them. Remember, life is full of unexpected twists and turns. Nathan's story shows us that even in our darkest moments, there's always hope for a brighter tomorrow. So keep your chin up, stay strong, and who knows? Your own happily ever after might be just around the corner. Until next time, this is Secret of Unfaithfulness, reminding you that every ending is just a new beginning in disguise. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.